السلام على الحسين المظلوم الشهيد. السلام على أسير الكربات وقتيل العبرات.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. به نستعين. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين، أرواحنا له فداء. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and Jummah Mubarak. We have completed the Arba'een commemoration of Imam Hussein alayhi afdhalu salatu wassalam, and I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of our mourning and our remembrance of Imam Hussein and the Ahlul Bayt, the aftermath of the tragedy of Karbala. And inshallah, I pray that soon we will be able to have our Jummah together in person, inshallah. And in any case, we want to give one of the beautiful advices of Imam Musa Kadhim alayhi salatu wasalam in this Jummah message, when the Imam, he states, لا تحدثوا أنفسكم بالفقر ولا بطول العمر فإنه من حدث نفسه بالفقر بخل ومن حدثها بطول العمر حرصه. The Imam, he states, do not speak to yourselves regarding poverty, nor with the extension of life, as if one is going to live forever or for a very long time. For surely one who speaks to himself regarding poverty, then that person will become stingy, bakhila. And that person who speaks to himself or herself as if they will live forever or for a very long time, then that person will become greedy. And what the Imam, he's speaking about here is one having thoughts of poverty or drowning in their thoughts of poverty or an elongated life. And this is a very profound statement of the Imam. It comes from a longer hadith, but I just want to focus on this section, because in this section, the Imam, he speaks about two vices: the vice of being stingy and the vice of being greedy. And in this advice of the Imam, we can say that it is very profound on a spiritual, psychological, and even a social level. It covers a lot of ground in this particular advice. On one hand, if we look at these two advices that the Imam, he points out, stinginess and greediness, and what the Imam says, he says, لا تحدثوا أنفسكم. Don't talk to yourself, or do not think, or in other words, have these negative thoughts, because in a sense, these are negative thoughts. And this advice of the Imam is not simply regarding these two vices. Yes, he's given a very pragmatic example here, but we can extend this advice to many aspects of our lives. That if we are thinking of negative thoughts, then we should not do that. We should have what we find in many other hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdhalu salatu wassalam, which they call husnul dhann, to think positively. And sometimes that husnul dhann is regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to think positive with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's interaction with you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's interaction and His care for His servant. But at the same time, a person must have husnul dhann with regards to himself or herself as well. And this is what this hadith is about. لا تحدثوا أنفسكم بالفقر, as the Imam says. أو بطول العمر, or with assuming that one would have a very long life. Because when we think of these negative things, then that leads to negative traits and negative characteristics. So if we think positively, then we will develop ourselves in a more positive light. Our akhlaq, our ethics, our spirituality will also go towards that which is positive. One of the interesting things about positive thinking, it leads to positive emotions as well. And this is something that some of the psychiatrists, they say, psychologists, they say that a person who has positive emotions, that they will live a more resilient and happier life. And not only that, one of the positive things that we could do is smiling. That instills within us a positive emotion as well. And in fact, some psychologists, they recommend, they say that every morning you should get up and you should look in the mirror and you should smile at yourself. So because this smiling at oneself begins to instill positive thoughts in a person, begins to instill within that person positive emotions. And some have said that these positive emotions and even smiling itself can boost the immune system and help a person to live a longer than average life, simply by thinking positive. And this is one layer and one aspect of the advice of Imam Musa Kadhim alayhi salatu wasalam. لا تحدثوا أنفسكم بالفقر. Don't speak to yourself or do not think about poverty. Yes, poverty may be the reality of a person, but that person, that individual should not drown himself or herself in thoughts of poverty. And this will take us to another aspect of the hadith and the advice of Imam Musa Kadhim alayhi salatu wasalam. Because when we think about success in this world, in this life, many, you could say motivative speakers who speak and motivate people, they say one of the best steps towards success in this world is to have positive thinking. So if a person thinks that, oh, well, I'm going to be poor and I'll never be successful, then yes, that's what will happen, because you begin to stop yourself from moving forward. So one should think positively about himself or herself, first and foremost, to improve their ethics, their akhlaq, their spirituality, their connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise, it will help improve one's social status. It will help improve one's worldly life as well, to think positively as well. And one may think that, well, even if I think positively, even if I think, oh, hey, I'm going to be a millionaire, and they don't become a millionaire, then we say, well, what good what does the positive thinking do? One thing that we should understand and realize, and even many psychologists, they also state the same thing, that only 10% of a person's happiness comes from external circumstances and factors. The remaining 90% of a person's happiness comes from their inner thoughts and their inner feelings. So thinking positively, it will do wonders. Even if a person's reality is that, oh, well, I didn't become a millionaire and I thought that I wanted to become a millionaire and I kept thinking about it. Of course, simply thinking about it is not sufficient. The person would have to take action as well. And even if they took that action and they did not become that millionaire, at least they made the effort on one hand. And on the other hand, as we understand from the Quran and the Riwayat of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam, we have our rizq designated for us. In fact, Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam has been reported to have stated that just as death is a reality, and that if we try to run from death, it will catch us, meaning that we cannot escape death. In the same manner, he states that our rizq is designated for us, and if we try to outrun our rizq, then it will find us. In one very beautiful story, when we think about this idea of poverty and poorness, and one reason why we should not speak to ourselves or have these negative thoughts of poverty, very beautiful story, and it points to the spiritual aspect of our faith. One poor person came to Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu complaining about his poverty, about his state. And whatever he did, whatever efforts he made, he would not become wealthy. So Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu he stated, and after the request of this person, for the Imam to make dua, that, oh Imam, make dua for me for my wealth. So Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu says, okay, well, what are you willing to do in order to achieve and to obtain this wealth? Imam Sadiq, he asks this individual, he says, are you ready to sell your walaya for us in order to achieve this wealth? And this person said, no, I will not sell this walaya. So Imam Sadiq again asks this person, he says, well, you want to achieve wealth and you want to be very wealthy. So what are you willing to sell? You have to sell something. You have to engage in some sort of business or some sort of transaction. So he says, sell to me this wilayah that you have of Ahlul Bayt, your following of Ahlul Bayt. This person again said, no, I will not sell that. So for a third time, the Imam, he questioned, he says, are you sure that you will not sell the wilayah of Ahlul Bayt in order to become wealthy? And so this person says, I'm absolutely sure that I will never sell the wilayat of Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. I will never sell this to gain worldly wealth. So at that point, Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu told him, he says, and if this is the case, then you are wealthy. That you have the best wealth that anyone could have. And this wealth of the wilayat of Ahlul Bayt alayhim is a wealth that will provide for you in this world and the next. It is a wealth that will provide you guidance in this world, will provide you a connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He Himself, He states, just so that we are not having these negative thoughts of poverty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He states in Surah Tawbah, verse 28, وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ عَيِّلَةً فَسَوْفَ يُغْنِكُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ إِنْ شَاءَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ حَكِيمٌ. He says that if you fear poverty, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will grant you wealth from His abundance, from His grace, insha'a, if He is willing, and by His power. And surely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Alimun Hakim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all-knowing and all-wise. And so therefore He sets our rizq, our sustenance, and He sets it to a point that, yes, we are able to bear the responsibility, or at least we should be able to bear that responsibility of that wealth that we have or the wealth that we do not have, that relative poverty. Because even the most wealthiest of wealthiest of human beings in this earth, if we even think about material wealth, they're impoverished because their wealth cannot exceed the wealth of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Malik as-samawati wal ard, Malik yawm ad-din. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He owns and possesses everything in the heavens and earth. Everything belongs to him. The day of reckoning belongs to him. So no one can ever be more wealthier than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even in wealth, there is poverty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says that mankind, antumul fuqara ilallah, that you are impoverished, you're in destitute, you're in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even we can look at relative wealth, that today perhaps the most wealthiest individual alive is Jeff Bezos, one who founded Amazon. But then there's always someone more wealthy than him. If we look at what is historically recorded, the most wealthiest individual of all times was Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa, the king of Mali, once he went to Hajj with 72,000 people. Again, he paid their Hajj. 72,000 people. And not only that, he took camels of gold with him. And whenever he stopped at a place along the way with his caravan of 72,000 people, he would give gold to the people in that town or that village or wherever they were, even to the point that it said that he gave away so much gold in Egypt that it offset the economy for several years. But the economy, because no one, not a single person was poor in Egypt after Mansa Musa had visited Egypt on his way to Hajj. But even that, Mansa Musa understood that he was in need, and whatever wealth he was blessed with by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, it belonged to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gave charity, he gave sadaqah. And this is one of the beautiful points about this advice from Imam Kadhim alayhi salatu wasalam. When we think of it and reflect deeply upon it, he says, do not think and have these thoughts or let these thoughts ruminate in your head about poverty, because if you do, bakhila, then you will become stingy, meaning you will not give charity. And we understand from the rawayat of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afsalatu wasalam, we also understand from the Quran, one of the things that increases a person's wealth is giving charity. So if one thinks about their state of worldly impoverishment, then they become stingy and do not give charity, then they are actually cutting off their own wealth as well. They are cutting off their own sustenance, because one of the things we know that will increase a person's rizq, that even if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designated, oh, we'll give this much to a person, or this is this person's rizq, when you give that rizq for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will give, as He stated in Surah Tawbah, that He will give, يُغْنِكُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you from that fadl, from that excess. He will give you from His wealth, because you have given for the love and the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, if a person thinks that, oh, well, I'll live forever, because these two vices, they kind of go hand in hand, the vice of being stingy and the vice of being greedy, that if a person thinks, oh, well, I'll have a long life, so I have to hoard and save up as much as I can, that will also prevent them from giving charity, giving sadaqah, giving in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which will result in their wealth being curtailed. One of the things that we should understand and know, as Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi afdhalu salatu wasalam has stated, he says, "Inna rizqa la yasuquhu hirsu haris, wa la yurudduhu karihatu karih." That our sustenance and that flow of wealth and sustenance is not determined by the greed and the desire of the greedy, nor is it curtailed, nor is it stopped by the disdain of the detractor. That someone who may be jealous of another person's wealth or what they have, and their dislike for others, that will not determine the flow of the rizq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That rizq is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hands. The part that we may play in achieving that rizq or increasing that rizq, on one hand, is not to speak to ourselves about poverty, make every effort to appreciate and receive that rizq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, take advantage of the opportunity of giving sadaqah. And Jum'ah is one of the days that it is recommended to give sadaqah, so that our rizq may be increased. And most importantly, as we began this examination of Imam Musa Kadhim alayhi wasalam, his advice is that we must think positively, have husn dhan with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's care for us, his interaction with us, but also have husn dhan with regards to ourselves and think positively for our own emotional and psychological, spiritual and ethical well-being. And particularly in this time, as we are mostly at home, our interaction with others is limited. So this positive thinking and having positive reinforcement of our emotions is very important. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will continue to guide us by the wisdom of the Quran and the wisdom of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins, to cover our shortcomings, to grant us our needs, to cure those who are ill among our friends and family members, and those who are around the world. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy upon our deceased ones and to hasten the reappearance of Imam Zaman, to make us among his helpers, his companions, and those who sacrifice our lives for him. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma ighfir dhunubana wastur ayubana waqdi hawaijana washfi maradana وارحم أمواتنا وعجل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه وتحت لواء بحق محمد وآله الطاهرين وآخر دعوانا والحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وصل اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا وشفيع ذنوبنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.